Again, today we have the opportunity to listen to the Buddha's teachings, and we have the opportunity to understand and put into practice the four truths of the Aryas, and especially to establish a foundation in ethical conduct, which is the first of the higher trainings. And the three higher trainings are the fourth of the four truths, true paths. So let's do this not only for the sake of our own liberation, but really with an awareness of how what we do influences others. Let's have the determination to influence others in a benevolent and kind way. And even to do our practice for the sake of all living beings. And to reach our fullest spiritual potential in peerless awakening also for their sake. So it's a long-term motivation, but let's go for it. Okay, so there's a question here. When I meditate on the four truths and the various aspects, it's an analytic meditation. When I hear that practitioners of the hearer's vehicle reach Nibbana by realizing the Four Noble Truths, I think they've gone way beyond analysis with this. Yes, of course. Also, but remember that analysis is not just conceptual, intellectual, this, talking to yourself. You know, that really deep analysis is a probing awareness that's going to be put together with mindfulness, with wisdom, to, really look deeply at how things exist, what their conventional and ultimate attributes are. Okay, so it's not just thinking up here. Yeah. So how does this work? What is the actual object of their concentration meditation? And what does it mean to realize true dukkha, for example? Okay, so let's say somebody's trying to realize true dukkha. So what you want to understand with true dukkha are those four attributes. Okay, impermanence, the nature of suffering, empty, and selfless. Yeah, so impermanence counteracts thinking of it as permanent. Dukkha counteracts thinking of it as, true sufferings are aggregates, the world around us. Counteracts seeing them as pleasurable. Empty counteracts seeing them as pure and clean. And selfless counteracts seeing them as having a self. Okay, here we're talking about how these things are seen in a way in common with all the Buddhist traditions. Okay, of course, prasangika for emptiness and selfless, they would see those as the same and so on. But here we're talking about the way in common with all the traditions. Okay, so how are you going to understand those? By means of meditating on the four establishments of mindfulness. Okay, and so, we've had teachings on that before, and you can see if you really go into the four establishments of mindfulness, that mindfulness has this element of investigation, analysis, wisdom, understanding. Mindfulness isn't just observing. Yeah, it's much more penetrative than that, and it's combined with a number of other mental factors as well. Okay, so for example, with mindfulness of the body, remember those meditations we did when you're looking at what's inside the body? Yeah? So, or you're looking at the kinds of corpses, or, thinking of your body becoming a corpse, looking at what's inside your body, looking in the inside of the body of the people you're attracted to. And when you really meditate on that, you're not just sitting there saying, Joe has lungs, they're not very attractive. Joe has intestines, they're pretty ugly too. That's not analytical meditation, okay? You're really looking at, like, there's Joe that you think is so handsome, and you open up his body and, like, you look at what's actually there and think, is this something desirable that I want to touch and hug, and, what's this going to do for me? So you have to make these meditations very personal. Yeah, sometimes this is the thing about using the word analytic, is we think it's just thinking up in our head. It's not. It's making these things personal and really, looking closely at what they are. And so in the Lam Rim, actually the Lam Rim is to be for people who have done the philosophical studies, and now they're going to meditate on some of them. So it's putting the main points together in a certain order for them. So, if you're meditating on the Four Truths, and you've done the philosophical studies, then you know about the Four Establishments of Mindfulness. Now, if you've done the philosophical studies and the Four Establishments of Mindfulness just with a mind of debate and analysis up here in your head and to win debates, it's not going to mean anything to you. Yeah, your meditation's going to be completely dry. But if you really take those meditations and put them into practice, you're not just debating them, but you're putting them into practice, then, they're quite juicy. And there's a lot to get out of them. Yeah? So the object of concentration, you're going to start with the body, then the feelings, then the mind, then phenomena. Okay? And really look at them. And then, what does it mean to realize them? It means that you really get what those four characteristics of each one are all about, so that it has some impact on your mind. Not just, oh yes, true path is a path because it leads to liberation. Oh, yeah, what else is new? It's not like that. It's got to be something really personal, the way you think about it. So, really make sure when you do these Lam Rim meditations or any of your meditations that you're applying it to your own life and making, looking at your own situation. Looking at your own mind. Do I think liberation is possible? Yeah, what do I really think? Do I think it's possible or not? Why would it be possible? How in the world does the wisdom realizing emptiness, overcome ignorance? And how in the world does ignorance create samsara? So these things you have to really go quite deep in your meditation about and make examples, watch how your own mind functions, watch what happens when ignorance is in your mind and how that gives rise to afflictions and karma, you have to really look at these things in your own experience, not look at them as objects in a petri dish out there that you're analyzing. Okay, so how you meditate is really important. Okay. Then the person says, because the aggregates, they're trying to understand this paragraph, because the aggregates arise and pass away each moment, they cannot be an independent self. Okay, something that's arising and passing away each moment. Yeah, what of the three kinds of dependence do they have? Yeah, that specifically is talking about causal dependence, isn't it? Of course, they have the other two kinds of dependence as well. Okay? Is something that is created by causes, is it a self, a blissful self? No. Okay, so that's the meaning there. Yeah. So this liberating insight wisdom that sees the three characteristics, okay, it sees impermanence, because samsaric things are impermanent. I'm talking from the Pali viewpoint here. Because they're impermanent, they can't bring us lasting happiness, so they're the nature of dukkha. Because they're impermanent, they can't be some kind of self-sufficient self. Yeah? Because they don't exist under their own power. Yeah? So, by you realize the three characteristics. By doing that, you understand that the 5 aggregates, 6 sources, or whatever, are characterized by the three characteristics. Yeah. Now, if you really see yourself, your aggregates, and the things around you as changing in every moment and disintegrating and becoming something else, if you really get that, what kind of reaction are you going to have? What? Renunciation? What? What else?
I'd freak out at first. Yeah. And then I'd be sort of relieved. I'd freak out first.
Yeah. So maybe some shock, wouldn't it? Yeah, some shock. And then would you go, oh my goodness, this is what the Buddha's been trying to get across to me for a long time. Yeah, would you have some awareness like, oh, I'm finally getting it. This is why samsara is to be abandoned. Okay? So you'd have a strong wish to abandon samsara, wouldn't you? Yeah. So the same from seeing dukkha. Yeah, definitely from seeing dukkha. Yeah. And then if you saw that there's no that none of the aggregates are a self-sufficient self, then how do you think you'd react?
I'd also freak out.
Yeah, at first, why would you freak out?
Well, then what am I? Who am I? It's everything that I've depended on. The Buddha says it doesn't appear the way it appears.
Yeah. So at first, it's shocking. It may feel like, horrifying, like I'm disappearing. But also, would you have a sense of, oh my goodness, what have I been doing all this time? Yeah? I've been putting all my energy into totally the wrong thing. Building up a self that doesn't even exist. What a waste of time. Yeah? And then from that, would you make some kind of determination to do things different in your life? Yeah, you wouldn't spend your whole life building up this self. Yeah? And then you'd have all this free time to devote to other things. Yeah? Instead of always trying to build up this self and protect this self. Okay? So you're getting some sense how really understanding these things on a personal level might affect you and change how you live your life and how you think? Yeah? Okay.
I really see then how it ties into the fact that why afflictions arise.
Yeah.
This whole thing that once you work on those 3, then you're like, well, why go through all the trouble of all these afflictive states of mind and create a karma when there's all these other things? I've seen things wrong. You know,
Yeah.
the whole ignorance, afflictions, and karma piece starts to make sense on why this causes this and why this causes this.
Yeah. And why it leads to dukkha. Yeah. And when you see that clearly, boy, we're gonna do things differently, aren't we? Yeah, because we realize that we've been deceived this whole time by ignorance. Yeah, completely deceived. So now we're gonna go, oh, okay, let's do things different now. So what are we gonna do now that we're not propping up this self anymore? What are we gonna spend our time on?
Hopefully being kind to others.
Yeah. You know, having some kindness towards others. Yeah, meditating on emptiness, meditating on bodhicitta. Yeah, acting with bodhicitta in our actions. Yeah, collecting merit. Yeah, so many things we can do.
In some ways, it almost feels like counterintuitive because of life, a whole lifetime, really lifetimes of conditioning that says this self is permanent, solid, static, not changing. And it's counter to everything from all these lifetimes of conditioning.
Yep.
My ignorance tells me it's true.
Right. That's exactly it. You know, and that's why the antidotes are the opposite, the exact 180-degree opposite of how we think. You know, because we've been building up these wrong conceptions since beginningless time. And the society around us reinforces it. Yeah. Everybody and everything around us tells us we are a unique individual. Yeah, and we should be somebody. So it's like all that gets blown away. Yeah, and it's shocking, but it's very freeing.
Since it might take a bit of time to be able to apply that, the precepts are very, very supportive because they stop you doing that. So you can hold in and versus creating negative karma and continuing with what you're doing kind of stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, the precepts. Before you've realized that ignorance is the big deceiver, your precepts really protect you. Yeah, very much. Okay, so thus the direct object of insight is the aggregates, sense sources or whatever, and they are apprehended in terms of the three characteristics. That's what I was saying yesterday, that, you know, in the Theravada tradition, what you're directly apprehending are the aggregates. How you're looking at them is how, you know, the aspect in which you're understanding them is the three characteristics. Yeah, usually we look at the aggregates and we go, oh, how good looking. I wonder if I could get pleasure from that. You know, here it's totally the opposite. Okay? And then as that insight wisdom deepens, yeah, then there's a breakthrough to nibbana. And at that point, your object is nibbana. It's not the aggregate seen in terms of the three characteristics.
So that breakthrough is stream entry.
Yes, that's stream entry. Okay. Okay. So let's go back. We were on page 71, right? We had just talked about the transmitted Dharma and the realized Dharma. So the transmitted Dharma being the teachings, the scriptures, the knowledge that's passed down from generation to generation, and the realized doctrine is the realizations in the minds of people. And so the Sangha you know, has been the ones primarily, you know, what's the word? Given the task of transmitting the doctrine from generation to generation. And because they have more time to meditate, hopefully, having the realized doctrine in their mind streams. Of course, lay people can do this as well. There's no doubt about that. Okay. According to scripture, whether the Buddhist doctrine flourishes in a place is determined by the presence of the fourfold assembly, which makes a place a central land. So remember in our Precious Human Rebirth, one of the 10 fortunes is, living in a central land. So the definition is the presence of the fourfold assembly. So male and female fully ordained ones, male and female lay practitioners who have taken refuge in the 5 precepts. So the existence of the monastic community practicing the Vinaya, specifically by performing the 3 main monastic practices, is crucial for making Buddhism a living tradition in a society. Although an individual may practice well and be highly realized, this does not constitute the flourishing of the doctrine in a place. Now you might say, why? Even if you have one Arya, isn't the Dharma flourishing? Well, the Dharma's flourishing in that person's mind. But how are other people going to meet that person? Yeah, how is that person going to spread the Dharma if they're one individual? If you have a community of people who are living in a specific place, then other people know about that place. They know where to go. And there's several people there who are living the Dharma. Even if they don't have the realizations, they're living the ethical conduct and doing their best to, meditate on the other topics. So that, gives society a specific place and a group of people to look towards. And a group is always more powerful than one person. Yeah? And you can see that just in terms of having teachings, As one person, if you request somebody to teach you something, yeah, you have to have a whole lot of merit to get one teacher to spend all their time teaching one person. You have to have a lot of merit, yeah. If there's a whole group of people who can benefit from the teachings and they request, much easier for the teacher to come because they go, oh, there's a group of people. Undoubtedly somebody in there is going to benefit, yeah. And so it's the cumulative merit of everybody in the group that has the ability to attract the teacher. Whereas if we're one individual, we have to have all that merit ourselves. Okay? So there's power in the group. Mm-hmm. Stable interest in becoming a monastic develops naturally from deep reflection on the basic Buddhist teachings. Okay? It develops naturally. You don't have to squeeze yourself. You don't have to go into crisis. You don't have to say, well, by the end of the year I have to figure out whether I'm ordaining or not. You do your practice. Yeah, if you sincerely do your practice and you practice properly and contemplate all these teachings, the decision makes itself. And you don't have to be like, well, do I want to go get a job and, have a family, or do I want to be a monastic? Well, today I want to have a family, tomorrow I want to be a monastic. What do? I really need to decide already. I'm tired of sitting on the fence, what do I want to do? Okay, next Wednesday's the limit, I'm going to make a decision. But this person tells me to be monastic, but then that person tells me I can practice as well as the lay person. And then this time, today I feel, I really want to keep precepts. And then next day, I can keep the 5 lay precepts. That's more my style. Oh, what do I do? If your mind is like that, you are not ready to take precepts. It's very clear, okay? No matter what deadline you give yourself, yeah, you're not ready to take them. So, it's when you do your practice seriously, the understanding builds in your own mind, and then the natural thing to do is to become a monastic, if that's, suited for you and it feels correct for you. So, it shouldn't be this like nerve-wracking process. Okay, as a result of contemplating compassion and dependent arising, one becomes interested in the nature of the mind. Here he's telling you how to do it. Okay, as a result of contemplating compassion and dependent arising. Now, of course, compassion doesn't mean just compassion. It means all the bodhicitta teachings. Dependent arising doesn't mean saying, yeah, everything's produced by causes. It means also going into emptiness. One becomes interested in the nature of the mind, which leads to an appreciation of emptiness, rebirth, and karma. This leads to understanding the possibility of attaining liberation. When one is convinced of this possibility, one will naturally be drawn to living a life according to ethical precepts, which could lead to taking monastic ordination. Okay, so do you see how these different steps follow one after the other? Yeah. So when he says when one is convinced of the possibility of attaining liberation, it doesn't mean you have to have a direct realization of emptiness. If you have a correct assumption, I think that's sufficient. Yeah, and you work to build it towards more, but a correct assumption is certainly good enough. Yeah. Then the Buddha explained the proper motivation to ordain. So this is from the middle-length discourses. Here, some clansman goes forth out of faith from the home life into the homeless, considering, I am a victim of birth, aging, and death, of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. I am a victim of dukkha, a prey to dukkha. Surely an ending of this whole mass of dukkha can be known. Yeah? So understanding how, how you're living in the middle of samsara, and samsara stinks. And there's an end to it. And that's what you're committed to doing is, actualizing that end, however long it takes. Okay? So the Buddha established the monastic community for a purpose. Yeah, for a purpose. There was a reason he did it. It wasn't just a flippant idea. Okay? To overcome afflictions, we need correct wisdom. And to maintain such a view, single-pointedness of mind is essential. To concentrate, mindfulness and introspective awareness are required. And these are cultivated through training in ethical conduct. So we talked about this sequence, this argument before. So very important to contemplate this. The ethical conduct of monastics is stricter than of lay followers, and thus is more effective in subduing the mind. Okay? Whereas the life of a householder may be more colorful, monastic life is more stable. Yeah? So householder life much more colorful. And then you go to the discotheque, you go to this movie, you go to that show, you have all the drama you want in your relationships. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. There's plenty of drama in a lay person's life. It keeps you pretty busy. Yeah? And when you have kids, too, boy, when you have kids, it's really potluck. You don't know who is coming into your family and what karma they have. When you really think about it deeply, when you really think about it, it's like parents, I think my parents must have been crazy to have us. You know? It's like they had a good life, and then, you know, they have no idea who this stranger is that's moving into their life. It used to be for 18 years. Now it's 40 years. You know, who you've got to take care of. You have no idea of this being's karma. Are you going to have a child with horrible health problems? Are you going to have a child with behavioral problems? Are you going to, what kind of child are you going to have? Yeah? It's totally potluck. You have no idea of what karma this kid is coming into your life with. But you're making the determination to raise this kid and take care of it for the next how many years? And your whole life becomes devoted to that. Yeah, when you think of what our parents did, what they had to do, yeah, you don't get a good night's sleep for at least 2 years because the baby's always crying in the middle of the night. And then they do all, they're wandering around, you know, they do so many dangerous things. You're always having to rescue them from one thing or another. Yeah, then they go to school, they start getting in trouble, they throw sand at other kids, and other kids throw sand at them, you know, and other kids tease them, but then maybe you have a kid who's the bully, and you have more headaches, you know, whichever side you're on that. I mean, what parents go through to raise children, unbelievable. When you think about it, you know, so this is why, you know, when we meditate on the kindness of the parents, when you really, you know, why they're so kind. Yeah, tremendous kindness our parents show you. Yeah. But if you're looking at it from the prospect of somebody, you know, who really wants to devote their life to the 3 higher trainings and to develop compassion, it's like, I don't think I could be a parent. You know, it's like this is too much. You know, no time to do anything else. Your whole life revolves around those kids, because you have to go out and get a job and make money, and not just money for yourself or your spouse, but your kid comes home. Everybody else has this, I want it too. Everybody else is going there, I want to go there too. So you have so much social pressure from your kids to fulfill everything they want. And also you feel guilty if you don't spoil your kid, which even actually makes the kid more demanding and more difficult to get along in the world because they expect everything to go their way. Yeah. I mean, it's poof.
They said every time there's a child in our society, the income has to go up 30%. Every child in a household,
yeah.
in our culture, the income has to go up 30%.
Yeah, for every child, the income has to go up 30%.
Just because of what they want.
Yeah.
Just to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. And so then you have to work harder. Then you don't have enough time to spend with your family, but you have the money to send your kid to a therapist because they haven't spent enough time with their parents. You know? So, you know, the life of a householder is definitely more colorful. So I just talked about the negative aspects. You also, you know, you also have the hits from being a householder. You know, you can have sex all you want to. Well, you know, providing somebody's around. Yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen with your relationship. You don't know if your partner feels like it. And you can eat all the good food you want as long as you can afford it. Yeah, so you can have much more sense pleasure as a lay person. And you can have this fantastic, social life. Go here, go there, do this, do that. Yeah, make a name for yourself. Do something in your field that you love and excel to the top. You can do all that. That's great. Yeah. And some people some people, that's what they want to do, and that's great. Do it with a kind heart. Do it with ethical conduct. Yeah. Okay, so householder life is more colorful. Monastic life is more stable. Although sometimes there's enough drama in the monastery to last for a year. Our project as monastics is to eliminate the drama. We don't like drama. Yeah. Okay. We want things to go along more smoothly. If you want to have drama, go out there and have it. Okay. Okay. So although it is difficult and requires giving up sexual relations and so on, there are benefits even in this lifetime. The monastic way of life is praised because it has direct relevance in developing the 3 higher trainings. So the Buddha didn't, make up monastic life because he had nothing better to do. Yeah, it has direct relevance to attaining liberation. And, he also, established the community, again, not just because he wanted a group, have a bunch of groupies trailing after him. Yeah, what headache that is. But, it's because when you live together with a group, you support each other and it becomes easier to practice. Because you're living with a group of people, you're all growing in the same direction. So everybody helps each other, because if you start going out way out of bounds, the community is going to say something and bring you back to, no, this is how we're practicing, this is where we're going. Yeah, so tremendous value in living in a community. Yeah, community also means you wake up in the morning. Hopefully, yeah. Unless you're so grumpy that nobody dares goes and knocks on your door.
Community means you hear people walking around.
Oh, okay. It means you hear people walking around, so you wake up whether you want to or not, and then you go to morning practice. Okay. So this latter point, that monastic way of life has direct relevance to the 3 higher trainings, this latter point is important, lest people think that the monastic life is outdated or irrelevant in modern times. Our teacher, Buddhist Shakyamuni, was a monk. Yeah, sometimes people seem to forget that. Yeah, he was a monk. The Buddha lived as a monk from the time he left the palace until his passing away, over 50 years. His ethical restraint and monastic lifestyle were natural expressions of the purity of his mind. Yeah. So many great Buddhist masters also lived this way, and the examples of their lives convey to us the importance and benefit of monastic life. However, monastic life is not suitable for everyone. People must choose the lifestyle most appropriate for themselves and have confidence in their ability to practice. And that's very important. If thinking of being a monastic just causes too much internal conflict in you, be a lay practitioner and be a good lay practitioner and be satisfied and confident and happy to do that. Yeah? Okay, a lay practitioner who practices diligently can attain high realizations. Marpa and his disciple Milarepa were highly realized lay practitioners, yogis, and teachers. Okay, then fulfilling the purpose of monastic life. So the Buddha describes how one lives as a monastic. Having gone forth from the householder life to the homeless life of a monastic, He dwells restrained by the restraint of the precepts, persisting in right behavior, seeing danger in the slightest faults, observing the commitments he has taken regarding body, deed, and word, devoted to the skilled and purified life, perfected in ethical conduct, with the sense doors guarded, skilled in mindful awareness, and content. Okay? So this is how one cultivates. It doesn't mean you ordain and automatically you're like this. It means this is how we practice. Okay? So we use the restraint of the precepts to help us. Yeah? And because we really need it. Yeah? So we create right behavior. Then we don't have nearly as many problems with other people. Yeah? We don't have so much guilt, so much remorse. Seeing danger in the slightest fault. That doesn't mean you're going around like, oh, there's danger in the slightest fault. Oh, I'm so anxious about it. It doesn't mean that. It means that you're being kind of aware of what's going on and you're very clear of your goal. Okay, observing the commitments he has taken regarding, body, speech, and mind. So to really, be mindful of the precepts that you've chosen because you see the value in keeping them. Yeah, devoted to the skilled and purified life. Yeah, so wanting to cultivate a purified mind and to express that purified mind outwardly in your behavior. Yeah, and so we train like that. We're not like that at the beginning. At the beginning, we're wild babozos. Yeah, but we practice, and then slowly our behavior changes and the energy around us changes. Yeah. At the beginning, when we first ordain, it's like the mind's going here, the eyes are going there, and the ears are going here, and shoveling the food in, and we're like, we're all over the place. Yeah, but as you practice, you may not realize it, but you're getting calmer and, with more inner wisdom and more control over your behavior. Okay, and other people begin to see the change in you. Yeah. They'll talk to you, whereas before they used to run away. So, I'm joking, sort of. No, but it's true, when other people see the change in you, then okay, slowly, I'm getting somewhere. And you see it, you feel it, how your relationships are. Perfected in ethical conduct with the sense doors guarded. So you're mindful, yeah? You don't want to sit and look at all these ads. You don't want to go window shopping. If you have to go into town, you're not going like this, looking at everything, looking longingly at McDonald's and remembering the good old days when you used to have some French fries. That's not how you go to town. You go to town and you're composed. Lama Yeshe used to say, you give a good visualization to other people. Yeah, so you're composed. Yeah, you go into a shop, you're friendly, you're kind. You don't go in the shop and say, I got this product from you and this beep, beep, beep thing doesn't work and your shop stinks. No, you kindly explain what the problem was and ask for the person's help, and they give it and you thank them afterwards. Okay? So the sense doors are guarded and you're skilled in mindful awareness and you're content. Yeah, you're content. I'm making progress. This is good enough. Yeah. I don't have to be a bodhisattva yet. That's going to take a while. But I'm making progress, and I'm happy that I'm making progress. I feel good about myself. Yeah, because I'm trying. I'm training my mind. I'm taking baby steps. I feel good about my life. I feel content with what I'm doing and what I have. Okay? So to receive monastic precepts, a person must be motivated by renunciation, the aspiration to be free from samsara and attain liberation. Nevertheless, some people are ordained with more worldly motivations. As a result, some monastics are genuine practitioners, while others are not. Now, some people ordain with a worldly motivation, but it changes. You know, you look, when you read the Pali Suttas, some people, they just see a Buddhist monastic walking down the street and they say, who's your master? I want to ordain. That's it. Yeah? So those kind of people, they start out with some faith, then gradually their motivation develops. But even at the Buddha's time, there were people, because there was the doctor, Jivaka, who gave free medical treatment to all the monastics. So all of a sudden there was a huge boom in people wanting to ordain, because they wanted to get free medical treatment. So, then the Buddha set up a condition that you can't have serious illnesses if you're going to ordain. Yeah, because he didn't want people taking advantage like that. So it is better if those who misbehave return to lay life and be good lay practitioners. When he's talking about misbehave, he means people who are really off the wall, okay? I believe more emphasis on the quality rather than the quantity of monastics is necessary. Now he's talking in the context of Tibetan monasteries, where they ordain whoever comes to the door, they will ordain. Yeah? Because their idea is it is better to live as a monastic one day in this degenerate time rather than your whole life at the time of the Buddha. So they ordain a lot of people. Also because to do a debating program, and to have debate be successful, you need a lot of people with different opinions to debate with. So they want a large number of people. Yeah. And so because of that, they ordain people. So you had people coming out of Tibet, no place to live, well, might as well enter the monastery. Yeah, because they were refugees. So the Buddha's seeing that some of those people will turn out as good monastics, but some of them won't. They just don't have the karma. So he's speaking to those people. Yeah. Yeah. The ones who were eyeing all the Western women trying to meet them, and saying, better for you to disrobe and be a lay practitioner than to behave like this. Yeah. I believe more emphasis on the quality rather than the quantity of monastics is necessary. One step would be to screen candidates more carefully and ensure they receive proper training and guidance from wise elder monastics after they ordain. Now this last part is, I think, especially important. In the Tibetan society, they'll ordain you. You usually go to live with a relative who's a monastic, and then you're living in that community and you get socialized into that community. So it becomes much easier for you to learn what being a monastic is about. Yeah, in the West, also, most teachers don't screen people who come to apply, and you have a lot of people coming to apply who have psychological problems, severe psychological problems. I'm not talking about the rest of us who are, average neurotics, I'm talking about people who are quite severe problems. And the Tibetans, they don't speak English, so they can't get to know these people. Yeah. They don't want the Westerners to screen them at all. So they just say, sure, you want to ordain, come, I'll ordain you. And then without supporting these people or giving them a place to live, they say, now you have to support yourself. Yeah, I'm a Tibetan refugee, I can't take care of you. And so then they're out on their own, and they don't know how to behave properly because they're not under the guidance of their teacher, or their preceptor, because the preceptor, maybe sent them to a Dharma center, but they don't necessarily go there, or they were ordained at a center, but they have many psychological problems, so they don't want to stay there. Yeah, I'm not talking about everybody, There's just a few individuals, but all you need is one individual, and it sets the whole community off. Okay? So to screen these people more carefully, because we find that here, not even just with people wanting to ordain, but people wanting to come visit the Abbey. Yeah, that we really have to screen people quite carefully, because there's some people who have very severe problems, and of course they turn to, religion to solve their problems. And we have a whole group of people too who don't have a place to live, who, kind of wandering young people who don't have a place to live, and say, well, can I stay here, and I work, and yeah, Buddhism sounds great, so teach me. And, and so we have to look and see, are these proper people? Is their coming to the Abbey really going to benefit them or not? Because if they're coming here looking for us to solve their psychological problems, we can't do that. We're not trained therapists. Yeah, we can give spiritual counseling, and certainly Dharma can help with your psychological problems. Yeah, but if you have quite severe problems, you need to see a professional who can help you with those. And then come here. Yeah, then we can help you. Okay? Right? Isn't this what we do? Yeah? Because I remember living when I lived at one place, in Europe, one Dharma center. Yeah, anybody who wants to come, they come. Yeah, then they go off their meds. We had one person running up and down the halls naked, screaming. You have all sorts of craziness. You have people, disappearing on you. We've had that here. People are here, then they disappear. We don't know where they went. We have to go looking for them. So, these people need, what's needed is real proper screening and then guidance after people ordain, so that people know how to behave as a monastic. And especially the first few years. That's why there's actually a precept that you're supposed to stay with your preceptor or with a senior monastic for at least 5 years after you ordain, so that you can train. I think 5 years is actually quite short, personally speaking. I think it needs to be longer because, there's a lot to learn, and it's a slow process. Okay, anyway, my personal opinions. Many people, lamas here in the West, do it very differently. That's fine, Everybody has their own style. Wearing robes and shaving your head are not sufficient to be a monastic. Okay? I was saying this because in Dharamsala you get these people coming and it's like, I want to be a monastic. I mean, I cannot tell you how many, she can tell you, because she's in the office, how many people write us who know nothing about Buddhism who say, I want to come and be a monastic. Yes, or I am coming. And we have to write and say, excuse us, no, this isn't suitable. Yeah, we had people, I'm in the middle of driving across the country. I have no money, I'm driving across the country. I'll be there next week and I want to ordain. Yeah? So we get several of those. Yeah, and also young people. I have no money. Yeah, can I live there and work there? And yeah, I want to learn about Buddhism. Yeah, and I'm on these meds, and but I don't really need those meds. Yeah. So we have to, we screen people because the object, the thing isn't we're an elitist group and we want to keep other people out. That's not the purpose. The purpose is how can we best benefit people? And if we're not in the position to provide people what they need, we have to refer them to where they can get what they need. Yeah. Okay. Wearing robes and shaving your head are not sufficient to be a monastic. One must keep the precepts well. Accepting offerings but not keeping the precepts well creates destructive karma that will ripen in an unfortunate rebirth. The commentary to the numerical discourses explains 4 ways of enjoying or using requisites. So requisites are food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. So, first way is enjoying with theft is when a monastic transgresses the precepts, has poor conduct, yet uses requisites offered with faith. Okay, this is likened to stealing because the requisites were offered to those who practice well, and the monastic is not keeping their part of the bargain. They're not concerned with their practice. They're not trying. Yeah, they just want whatever they can get. Okay, then the second one, enjoying with debt, is when a monastic with correct conduct enjoys offerings without reflecting on the kindness, generosity, and merit of the donor, and without dedicating for the donor's welfare. Okay, so this monastic, has correct conduct, so they're fulfilling that part of the bargain. Yeah, but they don't really reflect on the kindness and generosity of the donor. They don't rejoice in the donor's merit. They don't dedicate their merit for the donor. Okay, so this person consumes the requisites, but has not fulfilled his or her commitment to the donor. So part of it's fulfilled, part of it isn't, so they have a debt in that respect. Enjoyment, like an inheritance, is when training Aryas enjoy offerings. Since they are on their way to become arhats, it is as if they were using the inheritance that will later become theirs. So this is somebody who's a stream enterer, once returner, non-returner. Yeah, they're definitely going towards arhat, so they're going to become an arhat. It's like using their inheritance now that they're going to get. So there's kind of a gap between enjoyment with debt and enjoyment like an inheritance, you know? Because most of us, we're trying to keep our precepts well. We think about the kindness of the benefactors. We dedicate our merit for them. But we're certainly not Aryas. Okay? So we're kind of in between there. Not totally in debt, but it's also not our inheritance either. Okay? Maybe loan. Huh? Maybe investment. That's a good one. You're investing. Yeah. 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 The donors are investing in us. Okay, then the fourth one is enjoyment as an owner, is arhat's use of requisites, since they have eradicated all pollutants and fulfilled the aim of the path. The offerings are theirs to use. Okay. As the Buddha pointed out, some people may begin their life as a monastic with a sincere motivation, but later be sabotaged by the 8 worldly concerns. They become attached to offerings and respect, which leads them to praise themselves and disparage others. Intoxicated with their material gain and renown, they grow complacent and negligent, living in suffering now and creating the causes for future suffering. Okay, this is easy to happen. Yeah? And especially the inflated ego part of it. When you first learn the Dharma, you know you don't know anything. Yeah. So people don't give you so much respect, or if they do, it's it's very clear. It's respect to the precepts in your continuum. Yeah. And you don't know anything, so you don't get conceited. Sorry, I've got to speak softer. I forget that this thing is magnifying my voice. So, okay. So where was yes, at the beginning, so you don't get conceited. But as soon as you start to know something, and then maybe you're sent out to lead meditations, to give Dharma talks here and there, people come to you, they want advice, yeah. Then, or maybe you start being a, teacher, you're in the teacher role more, then you start getting a little, well, my practice is really paying off. All these people think that I'm quite knowledgeable, and they all say thank you, and they say, oh, what you're teaching me is so beneficial, and you're so kind, and you really saved my life teaching me this. Yeah, well, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, and your ego gets inflated. Yeah. So it's really something to watch out for. Yeah, very easily it happens. Other people practice ethical conduct well, but are arrogant, praising themselves for upholding the precepts and disparaging others for being sloppy. So these are the people, I keep the precepts to every finest little tiny detail, and I'm very superior because I keep my precepts so well. And you don't keep them to the tiniest detail like I do. So you are a slob. Do I have to say that over again?
I think that would be helpful if you want to edit it.
Okay. Yeah. You only walk there on the way back, not on the... Why don't you just take the box of tissues and put it next to you? Okay? That would be the best thing to do. Okay, so where were I? Oh, yes. So the person, somebody who practices ethical discipline well, but gets arrogant about it. It's like, I know the Vinaya perfectly. I practice everything according to this teeny tiny detail, and you are just sloppy, so I am so superior in my ethical conduct, So it's easy for that to happen too, okay? Such arrogance makes them self-satisfied and negligent in developing further virtues because they think, oh, my ethical conduct is so supreme, I've got it made, I don't need to do anything more. But, it's taming the mind that's the most important thing. Similarly, monastics may attain serenity or experience temporary liberation in deep concentration. Lacking introspective awareness, they become attached to and conceited about their attainment, and thus lose energy, becoming complacent, and do not fulfill their spiritual goals. So he's warning us about things so that, out of compassion, so that we can make sure to fulfill our spiritual aspirations and not get sidetracked. Therefore, it is important always to remain humble and focused on the ultimate attainments of liberation and full awakening. This is especially difficult to do when you have Buddhist magazines with advertisements in them, where everybody and their aunt and uncle are advertising, this fantastic teacher and that fantastic thing and this exquisite thing. Then very easy, to get inflated, especially if you think you're nothing and then, oh, my picture's in a magazine. So it's we have to be attentive. Monastics must constantly strengthen their motivation to renounce the 8 worldly concerns and renounce dukkha and to attain liberation. As monastics, our task is to learn, think, and meditate on the vast and profound teachings as much as possible. Okay, there it is. That's our job. Okay, you need a job description? Yeah, His Holiness just gave us one. Having done that, we should teach, translate, write, and lead others in the practice so that the Dharma will long exist in the world. Okay, there's your second job description. Yeah. Monastics are not perfect. Whew. And we may see a monastic behaving in an inappropriate manner. At this time, we should do our best to help this person correct his behavior. But we must not let the bad behavior of one individual cause us to lose faith in the entire Sangha. That's important. Because so often, we see one individual acting poorly, and then we lose faith in everything. And that's an extreme that we don't need to go to. We need to be able to separate that individual out. Here's a person with problems, who made mistakes. But the entire group is really going somewhere in a good direction. And they're not perfect, but what they're doing is certainly something marvelous in our world where people are usually going the other direction. Okay? So we should avoid criticizing all monastics based on the poor behavior of one. Okay? So this is, basic instruction on how not to be biased or prejudiced against any group of people. Yeah? Don't criticize the whole group based on the behavior of one of them. So then, monastics, priests, and lay teachers. In Tibet, two community of practitioners evolved, the white and the saffron, or maroon. The white refers to lay practitioners because they wear white clothing common to lay Buddhists. While they do not observe the external forms of ordained life, such as shaving the head, they follow the 5 lay precepts as well as the bodhisattva and tantric ethical restraints. Yeah, so these are talking about people who are lay practitioners who are very seriously into the Dharma, practicing all 3 sets of precepts. The saffron are celibate and follow the monastic ethical restraint. Externally, they wear the saffron monastic robes. In Tibet, both communities practiced with clarity and direction. Yeah, you had the yogis who were very earnest in their practice, the monastics earnest in their practice. Okay, do you need some water? However, today we find people who are neither in one camp nor the other. We find monastics who put on lay clothes and lay practitioners who wear clothes that look like monastic robes. The public is confused and questioned. This person looks like a monk, but has a wife and wears jewelry. How is that? And then His Holiness says, even I am confused when I see these people. I remember one time I visited one Dharma center, and the head of the Dharma center was a layman with a family, and he had brought a monk over to help teach in the center. Well, the man, who's the director of the center, he also gave Dharma talks, and he would dress up in something that looked like robes when he gave his Dharma talks, and he was very happy to, dress up, to put on those clothes that looked like robes. Meanwhile, the person who was the monk, from India, liked to put on lay clothes and go wandering around the city. And I was going, huh? So, His Holiness says, this is a problem in the international Buddhist community as well. Many people become confused when they cannot clearly determine someone's status. Is this person a monastic, a lay teacher, a priest? What can I expect of these different practitioners if I cannot differentiate amongst them? Yeah? So names are one point of confusion. Yeah? Since pratimoksha ordination does not exist in Japan, Japanese clergy are usually married. I recommend that married teachers from all Buddhist traditions are called priests. I think even if you're not married, if you're a lay teacher, this would include you, to be called a priest. I heard that the World Fellowship of Buddhists refers to those with Vinaya ordination as venerable and those who are married priests as reverend. This is very helpful. In terms of dress, it is better if monastics, priests, and lay practitioners wear their own distinctive clothing. On many occasions, I have asked lay teachers in the Tibetan tradition to wear either Tibetan or Western lay clothes, or a lower white robe and an upper shawl that is white with a few maroon stripes. In this way, people will know that they are not monastics and will be able to relate to them accordingly. However, many of these people continue to wear clothing that looks like monastic robes. There is nothing I can do about this. Monastics should wear their robes unless there is some danger in doing so. For example, if they are doing manual work. Or maybe crossing the border into China. Yeah. Okay, then Tibetan monastics and monastic institutions. Some monastics in the Theravada, Dharmaguptaka, and Mulasravastivada traditions do not eat after noon, and many Theravada monastics go on alms rounds and do not handle money. This is wonderful. Okay, some people of all three traditions who don't eat in the afternoon. Yeah, he's saying it's wonderful, and also not handling money is wonderful. Due to the large percentage of the Tibetan population that is ordained, practical constraints prevent everyone from strictly following some of these practices. Prior to 1959, approximately 1/4 of the male population in Tibet was monks. In Tibet and now in India, some monasteries have thousands of monks and are the size of small towns. That's for sure. Okay? Actually, in old Tibet, Drepung had over 10,000 people. Mm-hmm. So these large monasteries are also schools with a full study program that lasts about 20 years and includes teachings, memorizations, debate, Vinaya ceremonies, personal study, and group ceremonies. Yeah, many young boys join the monasteries, and with so many children and young adults who are memorizing and studying, these monasteries are filled with activity. If you think going to a Tibetan monastery is going to be quiet and peaceful, okay. Older monks go to remote places to meditate without disturbance. The tradition of debate originated in ancient India. The Buddha himself debated philosophical principles with the Shramanas and Brahmins of his time. In later centuries, large Indian monastic universities used debate as a learning tool and to establish the validity of the Buddha's teachings when challenged by non-Buddhist scholars. Tibetan Buddhism has continued this tradition. A key element in debate is having a large number of monastics who share their diverse ideas. That's what I was talking about. Given the large population at these major monasteries, local villagers cannot afford to give alms on a daily basis. Even if you go right now to like Mungot or Bailakupi, there's thousands of monastics there. And, I don't know if there's as many lay people as there are monastics. Yeah, so, the lay people now are quite poor. It would be very difficult for them to feed all these people. And the streets would be jammed with thousands of monastics on alms round. Yeah, so what he's saying is it isn't practical when you have these large monasteries. While lay people donate food to the monasteries, it is difficult to cook for thousands. Yeah, at the big teachings, you see they do cook lunch for everybody. They have these enormous pots. I mean, like from here to the wall, seriously. Huge pots. I can't imagine cooking rice in a pot like that. Yeah? Okay, but it's difficult to cook for so many. Yeah, so many monks prepare meals in their group houses within the monastery. This necessitates buying and cooking their own food, which requires handling money. Also, because they usually don't serve food in the main prayer hall unless a donor, offered the money for it to do a puja and included money for a meal. Yeah, or if the monastery is getting some steady donation, then they may offer, bread and tea on a daily basis. But when there isn't a major puja happening, then they usually eat in their group houses. So the group houses have donations that they use, or sometimes the individuals will go out and buy their own food too. Okay, so Tibetan monasteries, because of the huge number of people, they don't automatically give everyone their food. You would think they would, but because of the large number of people, that doesn't always happen. They're trying to move in that direction. Okay, and most of them are doing pretty good now, pretty well, and they're able to support the people now. Wait a minute. I was on this page. Okay. Yeah. Nevertheless, in Tibet and in the early years of our exile in India, some monastics continued their studies and practice with their belly only half full on a regular basis. Geshe Rapton was one of those. If you read his biography, it's very clear. And it was shocking to me when I read his biography. Why don't some of the other monks share food with him? I know some excellent monks who are now Dharma teachers who lived like this. Then challenges for Western monastics. The situation for Western monastics in the Tibetan tradition is especially difficult because few monasteries are established in the West, and living in India brings difficulties with visas, health, and language. Some teachers do not adequately screen and prepare Western candidates before ordination or provide proper training for them afterward. And some Western monastics face financial difficulties. This is very true. During a conference with Western Buddhist teachers in 1993, some Western monastics told me of the difficulties they face, and I couldn't help but weep. So I was there and I saw that. We must think how to remedy this situation and then act to do so. The best solution is for Western monastics to establish monasteries and develop their own training programs. We Tibetans will help from our side. So there he is, encouraging Westerners. I appreciate the gradual process in many monasteries where candidates pass through many stages before receiving full precepts. This gives them time to think about monastic life and evaluate whether it is suitable for them. So he also has commented he likes the way the Christians do it, again, slowly going through different stages, giving people a chance to think about what they're doing. Similarly, so the person has time to think about monastic life and evaluate whether it is suitable for them. So that's why we have the Anagarika year here. Similarly, the monastic community has the opportunity to assess the suitability of the candidates. I encourage Westerners considering monastic ordination to live in a monastery as lay practitioners for some time so they can experience living and practicing in this way. If this agrees with them, they can slowly take the progressive levels of precepts and be able to adjust to each level before deepening their commitment. So this works so much better than rushing in, yeah? Sometimes you get people who, I say that they have ordination fever. It's like, I want to ordain right away. How about tomorrow? You know, and you go, well, you just met the Dharma a month ago. You know, slow down. I had ordination fever. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to do it right away. Yeah, and my teacher said, yes, but slow down, you know, made me wait, so it was good. But, you know, sometimes these people with ordination fever, you know, if one person tells them that, they'll just go to some other teacher until they find somebody who will ordain them. And then, you know, the next thing you know they're ordained, and they're going, look, I'm ordained. But what do I do now? You know, so I always like to ask these people, what are you going to do the day after you ordain? Yeah? So living with other monastics, be they our teachers, peers, or students, is valuable. Although monasteries are rare in the West at present, hopefully more will be established in the future. Monastics who do not live in a community should cultivate friendships with spiritual friends with similar precepts, views, and aspirations, and keep in contact with monastics who live in other places. They can then discuss the Dharma and the challenges they face with these Dharma companions. Okay. Should we pause here? Okay, we'll pause here. Next one's full ordination for women. Yeah, of course, we have to pause, delay, put it on hold. Yeah, we'll come around to it later, you know. Maybe for auspiciousness, we should do it now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Probably don't want to cover it in 5 minutes, though.
Well, it may take 10. Over the years, because most of you know this already, so I don't think I need to go into it a lot. Over the years, I have spoken many times about Bhikshuni ordination and expressed my wish and hope that this ordination will be given in our Mula Sravastivada Vinaya tradition. Look what he says. Okay? When Shantarakshita brought the Bhikshu ordination lineage to Tibet in the 8th century, he unfortunately did not bring Bhikshunis too, you know, because there would have been super controversy, you know, Bhikshus and Bhikshunis traveling together. Yeah. So, and thus the Bhikshuni ordination never took root in Tibet. However, our teacher, the Buddha himself, established the Bhikshuni order during his lifetime, and at the same time he affirmed women's ability to attain both liberation and full awakening. He also expressed his wish for the fourfold assembly to exist, and said that these 4 groups harmoniously practicing the Buddha Dharma will make his teachings last a long time in the world. For all these reasons, it is important that Bhikshunis exist in our Tibetan community. This is especially true now when the quality of the nuns' education has vastly improved. We now see many nuns becoming good scholars. Some nuns are now receiving their Gesima degrees, signifying their mastery of Buddhist philosophy. So sometimes people say, well, His Holiness only says this because he's pressured by Westerners. He just gave a whole series of reasons that are his own reasons that make a lot of sense. It's not pressure. Yeah. Wherever I go in the world, I see multitudes of women devotees. In many places, they outnumber the men. Therefore, it is only right that women have access to the responsibilities and privileges that full ordination brings. As one individual, I do not have the authority to institute Bhikshuni ordination in the Tibetan community. This is an issue that the Sangha as a group must decide. Okay? So His Holiness has said this repeatedly because many people come to him. They think he's like a pope with automatic authority over all of Tibetan Buddhism. He does not have that kind of authority. And in a matter of Vinaya such as this, the decisions have to be made by the collective Sangha. Yeah, not by one individual. Yeah, very important. So His Holiness has said this again and again, because many people come to him and say, why don't you just, with one fell swoop, establish Bhikshuni ordination? And he says, I don't have that ability to do that. And besides, in addition to not having the ability as one individual, what he wants to see is to have everybody, as much as possible, in accord with it, so that afterwards people won't say, well, we did this because the Dalai Lama made us, but he's not here anymore, so we're going to stop giving the ordination. He doesn't want that to happen. So he really wants people to be on board and to have the support of the community, because that's what's necessary for the long-term existence of the Bhikshuni order. So for many years I have suggested there be an international meeting of the Sangha to decide this issue. In preparation for that, it would be good if Tibetan bhikshus could agree on a way to give the Mula Sravastivada Bhikshuni ordination. I am pleased to see the support for this from many heads of Tibetan lineages. I have also shared some Vinaya materials with Laotian and Burmese Buddhist leaders. We will have a serious discussion, and I am quite sure some agreement will be achieved eventually. Okay, so despite His Holiness saying that he would like the Tibetan monks to come up with some way to give it in the Mula Sravastivada lineage, and despite some Vinaya scholars finding a way to do it, and despite the approval of some of the heads of lineages, not everybody is on board with this. And the Tibetan community is such that nobody likes to stick out. Their culture's very different than ours. We like to be the one who's radical and first do something and, spits in the face of authority in the system. Tibetan culture, no, you don't do that. It doesn't work, okay? So nobody wants to step forward until they all step forward together, okay? So that's taking some time. What happened recently, maybe a few months ago, is they had another meeting of the heads of the lineage, and the issue of Bhikshuni ordination came up. The Karmapa was not there on the day that it came up, but what the group decided is, since they're still researching the Mula Sravastivada thing, they've been researching it since the mid-1980s. And they had a special commission do Vinaya research on it a couple of years ago. But despite all this, they haven't finished researching. So they don't want to hold things up, so they're going to give permission for the Tibetan nuns to go and take the Mula Shava, to take the Dharma So they're giving permission to the Tibetan nuns to go to the Dharma-Guptaka masters and take Bhikshuni ordination from them. So in one way, you can say that's a step forward. They're saying that's a valid Bhikshuni ordination, and you can go there and take it. The difficulty for the Tibetan nuns is they want to take it from their teachers, and if they're going to do the rites from the Vinaya, they have to, it's better to do them with the monks that are from your own Vinaya tradition, because the Tibetans are very strong about that. So I don't think many Tibetan nuns will go there. Maybe some Western nuns will go. Now, aside from this, or maybe in addition to this, the Karmapa has said that he wants to institute Bhikshuni ordination, at least within the Khargyu tradition. And so he wants to invite some Dharma-Guptaka Bhikshunis to come and give the Shramaneri ordination, then the Shikshamana ordination, and then work out a way to give the Bhikshuni ordination. He hasn't really said how the Bhikshuni ordination will be given, whether he wants to do it a combined thing or not, because it's still several years off. Yeah? But he said he would like to do that, and he would like to start, I think it's next spring. And his idea, which I think is very good, is he's only allowing a few select nuns to do this, and they all have to live in communities. And I think this is very wise, because he wants, because whoever these nuns are in the Tibetan community, they're going to be under a lot of scrutiny by the monks. And so he wants to make sure they're good, competent nuns, and also that if they live in community, then they can do the Vinaya procedures together. And that's an important attribute for being a fully existent Sangha. So I think it's very good that he really wants to establish communities of bhikshunis, not just open it all to, every Susan and Tashi around who's going to come, take bhikshuni ordination and then wander around without any training and without any support, because doing that would just give a bad name to all the new bhikshunis. Yeah. So I'm very much an advocate of, doing it slowly, making sure they're in communities, making sure they get the training. Okay. We Tibetans are very fortunate that after persecution by King Lang Dharma in the 9th century, we were able to restore the bhikshu lineage, which was on the verge of extinction in Tibet. As a result, so many men have been able to listen, reflect, and meditate on the Dharma as fully ordained monks, and this has benefited Tibetan society as well as the world. Therefore, let us do our best to research this issue and find a way to establish the Bhikshuni Sangha as well. In countries that currently have Bhikshuni ordination, such as Taiwan, Korea, and Vietnam, Bhikshunis benefit the Dharma and society in many ways. Recently, Theravada Bhikkhuni ordination has been restored in Sri Lanka, and there are nearly 1,000 bhikkhunis as of 2014. And there are now even some bhikkhunis in Thailand. Equal opportunity regarding ordination is important. Citing passages in the Vinaya, some Tibetan Vinaya masters suggest that under special circumstances, a bhikshuni ordination performed by the Bhikshu Sangha alone is valid. These special circumstances include a place where bhikshunis are not available to give the ordination because no bhikshunis reside in that area, or because it is too dangerous for bhikshunis to travel to that place. Previous and contemporary Vinaya masters in the Chinese community agree with this. So here he's laying out a reason, why it would be possible for the Bhikshu Sangha alone to give the bhikshuni ordination in the Tibetan community. In the meantime, several women who practice Tibetan Buddhism have received bhikshuni ordination in the Dharma-Guptaka Vinaya from Chinese, Vietnamese, or Korean Sanghas. We recognize them as bhikshunis. I encourage them to do the 3 main Sangha activities together. So we're doing that. In addition to introducing bhikshuni ordination, bhikshunis must also become objects of reverence. Therefore, we must examine passages in Buddhist texts as well as attitudes and practices in our communities that are biased against women. The Buddha wanted his Sangha to conform with many of the cultural attitudes of the time. As the Sangha, we must do this in the 21st century as well. Since modern societies, as well as the United Nations, stress the importance of gender equality and respect for women, we Buddhists must do so as well. That's a good place to stop.